All right, let's talk about something kind of awkward. Money conversations at work. They're probably some of the most important discussions a team can have, but come on, let's be real. They're almost always the ones we avoid the most. So today, we're going to dig into why that is. We'll get into what's really going on, and more importantly, how we can start having way better, more productive money talks, like starting today.
Have you ever been in a meeting when the budget slide comes up? You know that feeling, right? It's like a switch flips. The whole energy in the room just tenses up. Suddenly everyone's super interested in their notebook, their phone, their coffee cup, anything with a screen. And trust me, it's not just in your head. This is a super common, almost universal thing. And that awkwardness, it has a real cost.
Yeah, and this is way bigger than just feeling a little uncomfortable. When we dodge these conversations, the whole team's performance takes a hit. I mean, decisions that should be simple, they get stuck in mud. People start making up their own stories about what's really going on. And that foundation of trust, it starts to get these little cracks. This is a legit business problem.
So the big question is, why? Why does this happen? Well, here's the thing. Most teams don't struggle with this because they're not smart enough. Not at all. They struggle because they're missing context. So let's peel back the layers here and figure out what's really causing all this tension.
And it really comes down to three main things. First, people just don't know what's okay to talk about and what's not. Second, the numbers themselves, they can feel like a personal report card. And third, when you can't see the whole financial picture, it just creates a ton of anxiety. So let's break each one down.
Okay, so reason number one, think about it. In a lot of companies, financial info is kept under lock and key, right? So if you're a team member and you have no idea what the rules are, what's shareable, what's top secret, what's the safest thing to do? You got it. You say nothing. You just stay quiet so you don't accidentally step on a landmine. And that silence, it's not neutral. It's not harmless. As this slide says, silence becomes the default. It just becomes the normal way of doing things. And over time, that silence creates a huge gap, a distance between the people doing the work and what the company is actually trying to achieve.
All right, let's move on to the second big reason. And this one's all about feelings. It's easy to think of spreadsheets and budgets as just cold, hard data. But for the people whose work is represented by those numbers every single day, man, it can feel incredibly personal. And you can really see the difference here. In a kind of unhealthy, tense culture, a budget feels like handcuffs, right? It's just a restriction. Expense tracking feels like Big Brother is watching you. But what if we flip that? In a healthy team, that same budget is a shared roadmap. And expense tracking, that's just shared data to help everyone make smarter choices. See? Same numbers, totally different vibe.
And that brings us to the final piece of this puzzle, good old-fashioned anxiety. When people are basically working in the dark with no real clue about the team's finances, it creates so much uncertainty. And you know where uncertainty leads, right? It almost always turns into fear. And we're not talking about some vague, abstract fear. It comes from not knowing really specific things. You're left guessing. How does money even flow around here? Which expenses actually matter? What does success even look like on a spreadsheet? And let me tell you, that guessing game is not only stressful, it's super inefficient. Okay, enough about the problem. We've diagnosed it. We get it. So now, let's totally shift gears and talk about the solution. Let's paint a picture of the goal here. What does a healthy, open financial culture actually look and feel like? I mean, look at this. The difference is night and day. In the old, awkward way, budgets are just dropped on your desk. But in the healthy way, they're explained. Expenses, instead of waiting till something's on fire, you talk about them early and openly. And maybe the biggest one of all, questions go from something you're afraid to ask to something that's actually welcomed. So really, it all boils down to this one fundamental shift. Money stops being the secret system that only a few people at the top understand. Instead, it becomes a shared responsibility, something that everyone on the team gets and has a part in. Okay, that sounds amazing in theory, right? But how do you actually do it? The good news is you don't need to be a CPA. You just need a playbook, a clear step-by-step guide. And that's exactly what we're going to walk through right now. Here it is, 5 steps to completely change your team's money conversations. We're going to normalize it, give it context, create a safe space for questions, use the right tools, and finally, connect it all back to the why. Step 1, just make it normal. Seriously.
Don't wait for a five-alarm fire to talk about the budget. Bake it right into your team's regular routine. Maybe it's in your weekly check-ins or a monthly update. When you talk about it all the time, it just loses its scary, intimidating power. Familiarity really does kill the awkwardness.
Now, step 2 is a huge one. Context is everything. Numbers without a story are basically meaningless and honestly a little scary. If you just say expenses are up 18%, everyone freaks out. But if you say, hey, expenses are up because we invested in new tools that made us 30% faster, suddenly everyone gets it. Context turns a scary number into a smart decision.
All right, step 3, you have to make it safe for people to ask questions. If your team is too scared to say, I don't get it, then tiny little misunderstandings are going to fester and grow into massive problems. And this one really starts at the top. It's on leaders to genuinely welcome questions, not just tolerate them. And we're talking about really valuable questions here. Things like, can someone explain why this costs so much? Or what would happen if we pushed this expense back a month? These aren't challenges, they're the kinds of clarifying questions that lead to much smarter decisions for the whole team. Okay, step 4 is all about your tools. You know, a ton of awkwardness and arguments come from a really simple problem. Everyone's looking at different outdated spreadsheets. When you move to shared tools where everyone, and I mean everyone, is looking at the same real-time numbers, you wipe out a massive source of confusion right off the bat. And that brings us to our final and maybe the most important step. This quote on the screen just nails it. Purpose makes numbers meaningful. The money stuff should never feel like just some abstract homework assignment. Every dollar, every line item needs to be connected back to the team's bigger mission, to the why. So you do all this work, you follow these steps. What's the payoff? Honestly, the change can be huge. You literally go from a culture of awkward silence to one of shared empowerment, where people actually feel in control. And we're talking about real concrete benefits here. All of a sudden, decision-making gets faster because people actually have the info they need. Your team members feel way more confident in what they're doing. Trust gets stronger, and your team's performance, it's not a mystery anymore. It becomes something you can actually measure and improve. It's a win for everybody. So I'm going to leave you with this one final question to think about. The next time you're in a meeting and you feel that familiar awkward silence when money comes up, ask yourself, what is this silence really costing us? What is it costing our team in speed, in trust, and ultimately in results?